Today's episode is brought to you by Tanjo. Tanjo is the knowledge engine that brings you better content the more you use it. Our guest today uses it to find content relevant to his industry. To find out more, visit www.tanjo.ai.
Hi everyone, I'm your host Will Jarvis, and today I've got John Day with me. John Day is the managing partner at KDI Capital, a hedge fund in Raleigh. He's got some advice for young people. Today we're going to be talking about investing for young people, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, and how to attain financial independence and financial freedom throughout your life. How are you today, John?
Good, Will. Good to be with you.
It's great to be with you. So, we put together some questions and we're going to kind of lay out John's roadmap and his general tips. So one of the first things is, so you were telling me earlier that you find that the happiest people tend to be the ones who have some financial freedom. Now, what do you mean about that?
Well, I think that the experience and the studies show that people that have the most control over their lives, the decisions to be made in their lives, are some of the happiest people. And if you combine that with the opportunity to develop your God-given talents, that can make for a very rewarding life. I think it's very frustrating for people to feel like their life is controlled by somebody else, and
Right.
they've never gotten a chance to really develop the things that they're good at.
Right. That's awesome. So you also talk about, when the cash flow from your investments allows you to do what you want to do, then you really achieve that freedom. What do you kind of mean about that?
Well, what you want is not necessarily to have enough money to do nothing. What you want to have is enough money or cash flow from your investments that allows you to do work or service that you think is really important.
I see.
And again, it's something that maximizes or uses your talents. So it's varying degree. If you're lucky enough to start out in life and be in a job that you feel is really important and it provides for you and your family financially, that's great.
Right.
But I think there are a lot of people that have some financial needs, take a job, and they really would rather do something that they feel is more important in life.
Right.
And now we're trying to move them to that equation by creating capital and investments that allow them to get to that point in life.
Excellent. Excellent. So, we've got this goal now. We want financial freedom. So what's the best way to get there? What's the number one thing you think what's the best thing to invest in? Right? If we could pick anything.
For first, I like to say the best thing to invest in is yourself.
All right.
So you're gonna do whatever you can to do to make yourself more valuable in the field of study or work that you're in.
I see.
So you're gonna get as much education as you can. Sometimes the education is expensive, but you're gonna be a lifelong learner. You're gonna read about things in your field, things related to your field, maybe even outside your field, just making yourself more of a Renaissance person.
Right.
Exactly. And you're gonna find mentors, ask questions, observe, look for models that work in your field. Just be inquisitive and just determine that you're gonna take on challenges and opportunities that stretch you throughout your career.
Right. That's really excellent. So it seems like having that growth mindset that you're always trying to grow no matter where you're at, even where you're at. You've been very successful in your career. It seems like you're always trying to grow.
That's exactly right. And I think the happy people are people who are growing and moving ahead and achieving goals. So as you're making yourself more valuable, then hopefully your earning capacity and power is going up, and then that leads you on that path towards financial independence.
I see. Excellent. So we've hit on to the number one thing to invest in is yourself, your human capital. So the next step in your plan is to pay off credit cards and car loans. Right. So I'm curious, I don't use credit cards because I read a study a while back that 72% of Americans or something insane like that had credit card debt. And I couldn't see the advantages other than getting a better credit score because, I've never paid anything off before. But are credit cards a bad idea or do they serve a purpose?
Well, I think they're not necessary. And so I'm glad to hear you're not using them. I think they're highly profitable for the credit card issuing company. So you probably get 3 or 4 offers a week for a credit card.
Right.
Which if they're highly profitable for them, then they're highly unprofitable or for you or negative for you. So I think the first thing you want to do in getting control of your financial situation is get that away from you.
I see.
If you've got a car loan, same thing. They're high cost and short-term debt is not where you want to be.
Interesting. And, it seems so pervasive in American culture. I mean, we have largest GDP in the world, but we have some of the smallest, we have low levels of wealth. People don't actually have a lot of money in the bank.
Yeah.
And a lot of that seems to be, credit cards, which, it's an odd thing. A lot of people get credit cards because you say, oh, I'm gonna get the points, the 1 or 2%. But, even if you spent $100,000 in a year, that's only $1,000 or $2,000.
Right.
It didn't seem like calculus didn't make sense. And then the interest rate, if you do happen to, roll over one of those months, it seems like a huge penalty.
Yeah, it is a huge penalty. Plus, you have an annual fee probably associated with the card as well. I think, unfortunately, all the advertisement is geared to telling you why you need this or why you need
but not
that.
why you don't.
And they're just think of them trying to take money out of your pocket.
Right,
They're really
there
to do that, and they're good at it. So be on guard.
Interesting. That's good advice. And so on car loans, I'm going to deviate a little bit. What would you recommend? So I see, I just recently got a new job, my first real job, I suppose.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And, I'm making a salary, and I'm looking at how much new cars cost nowadays.
Yeah.
And I just went through the process. I'm like, there's no way I could ever afford one of these right now. And for most people, I don't see how they can afford a new car. It's $20,000 or $30,000.
Yeah.
Is a huge amount of your salary. So do you recommend getting a used car?
I've got a buddy who said the new car to used car transfer is the greatest wealth transfer there is in America, because the minute you drive that new car off the lot, it depreciates so much because now it's used. There's a big gap there. I think I would definitely buy a used car. Recommend that for a young person. And so you want the cheapest, most reliable thing you can have that doesn't destroy your image.
Right, exactly.
You got a certain image. You have to balance.
That's right.
But so you're just not going to make any money on a car, and you're just hoping not to lose the least amount in depreciation.
Gotcha.
A car that provides for you what you need.
And funny enough, Warren Buffett drives like an Accord or a Camry
That's
or something like that. So just something to keep in mind.
That.
Cool. So the next thing, so first thing you want to do is pay off the credit card debt. Now, why would someone, I don't think we hit on this, why would someone want to pay off the credit card debt first?
Well, that's because of just what you talked about, like the penalty from if you have to miss a mail, and the interest gets big, or if you happen to then lose work, and then you can't make the payment, then it really piles on you. It's really tough to get ahead of it. And let's step back. Let's talk about budgeting just for a second here, because that's an important part. There's a really good book out there called The Richest Man in Babylon.
The Richest Man in Babylon.
Yeah, it's
a
very
right here.
Very easy read.
Gotcha.
And it's an old book that's sold probably millions of copies. But what it says is it turns the traditional budgeting on its head. In that, you think, I'm going to line this out. Okay, X dollars for food, X dollars for entertainment. Well, you never can remember. You never quite hit that.
Right.
Their prescription is write the first check to yourself.
Interesting.
So when you get your paycheck, the first check goes to yourself.
Interesting.
Then the rest is there for you to spend. If you run out of money before the next check comes in, you're done spending. You're just done.
You're just done.
That's it. And so that's an easy way to do it. Now, if you really want to get serious about like financial independence, they did a study of all the people that are millionaires and that earned their millions, and they found that they save on average 20% of their income.
Interesting.
That's steep. That's steep, but that's what it takes, and that's what those people do. So that first check that you write to yourself, that goes into we'll talk about the retirement savings.
Right.
That's where you max out on your retirement savings as best you can. If you can get to 20%, great.
Interesting.
If you can't, keep working towards that until you get maxed out on your retirement.
Wow, that's so fascinating. You mentioned putting away 20%, saving 20% of your money,
right?
And so that seems like something where you have to have a lot of self-control to accomplish something like that.
Right.
And interesting enough, Stanford psychology department, they did this study, and they tracked students for 30 years since they were a baby until they were 30, and they wanted to find out what contributes most to your success. Is it the wealth that you were given by your parents? Is it your intelligence? Is it your your physical height, what tracks best
Yeah.
to your success, your monetary success. It turns out the people that ended up with the most wealth in the study were the ones that gave this test called the Marshmallow test. So they would give, let's imagine you're like 3 years old. We'd give you a marshmallow, okay? And we say, we'll give you another one right now, or if you wait 30 minutes, we'll give you 5. And the kids that waited 30 minutes and got 5 were the richest ones.
That makes the most sense.
Which is really fascinating. So I think it's something that if you know that, you can start, thinking about, okay, like I need to get better at this. I think it's something you can get better at.
Right. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit.
Excellent.
When you talk about the marshmallow, that comes back to you and I had talked earlier about the 100-year plan.
Right.
Where at your age, you got to realize you might live to be 100. So
Right.
you got to plan for that.
That's right.
Not necessarily that you will, but you got to plan that you might live to be 100. So that marshmallow example, when you take a unit of savings and you spend it now versus spending it later in life, turns out it's 2 to 3 times. So
Right.
1 unit equals 2 or 3 years, two or three units of freedom, financial
I
freedom later in life. So it is that same concept of deferring now, because it's not just one more. When you defer one, you get it later. You get 2 or 3, you get a multiplier effect, and if your investments turn out really good, it's 4 or 5. It can be big. So important.
That's really important. Interesting. So we're gonna move a little bit, but I think this is important as emergency funds. So
Yeah.
why would I? I'm 22. I'm bulletproof. Why don't I need an emergency fund, right?
Well, not necessarily you, because you are
Right.
but everybody else.
Everybody else. Okay.
Everybody else. I just have observed, and there's more pressure on business, that you will change jobs during your lifetime, and there's likely to be a transition period during that change.
Right.
Or you might have an accident or a health issue
Right.
puts you out of work for some period of time. Maybe you have to take care of a family member for some period of time. That's what the emergency funds are for. And so I say 6 months worth of savings or burn rate or whatever your expense rate are, to be able to get through that period of time until you're back at work where you think and your income's back.
Go. Interesting. So this leads to our next kind of point is retirement savings. So max those out. So we're going to we save, hopefully 20%.
Right.
We're going to put that 6 months away into, I'm assuming, would you put that in a savings account in the bank?
Just a savings account.
Gotcha.
And
then we're going to max out our retirement savings. So what does that look like?
That's really important. It's the IRA and the 401k, where Warren Buffett talked about compound interest being the 8th wonder of the world, because it's the magnificence of allowing something to compound. So the government set it up now where you can put money in an IRA or 401k, and this has always been the case with these plans, and it accumulates tax-free. And that is a huge benefit, not to have you pay taxes on the gains every year.
Gotcha.
So these are your best savings and vehicles. And if you were to be able to put away the maximum in the IRA, which is $5,500 currently, and I think it's like $18,000 the 401k, so it's $23,500. Wow. It's a lot of money, but if you were able to do that for 40 years till you're 70 or so, say you start at age 30, you could get to that level.
Right.
Then for 40 years you did that. The numbers are, I believe, here, let me see. So if you earned the median return for the stock market, 9%.
Right.
So you would have just a shade under $8 million at age 70.
Wow.
At that point in time. That would be equal to, in today's money, you assume 2.5% inflation, that would be equal to a little over $4 million today.
Wow.
So just think, so if I had $4 million, then if the sustainable withdrawal rate is about 4%.
I see.
So if I would take out 4%, I could take out 4% sustainably forever.
Right.
So in terms of today's dollars, that would be like taking out $160,000 a year.
Wow.
forever. So
Wow.
if I was at 70 and I was gonna live to be 100, I could take out $160,000 a year for that last 30 years, probably more when you actually run the tables. And then that then gets you to, well, what would I do, if I could do that?
Right.
And maybe if you even started withdrawing earlier, which I don't recommend, but if you had other savings, maybe, at age 50 or 55 or 60 or 65, you would begin to say, what else? I've done things that I want to do something of significance in life, and maybe some areas that I haven't been involved in, I want to get involved in, I want to do something. That's what we're trying to get you to.
Excellent. Cool. So we've got retirement savings, incredible point, and the chief innovation with the IRA and the 401k. Can you explain, just very quickly, what the difference is?
Yeah. So the IRA, if you use a Roth IRA, you're contributing after-tax dollars, but you're taking it out tax-free.
I see.
So all that accumulation for a
Gotcha.
Roth IRA, you take out tax-free. The 401k, which is generally an employer-sponsored plan, you are contributing pre-tax dollars. So you aren't taxed on it at the time that you at the time you earn it, as long as you put in a 401k. But when you take it out, then you get taxed on it.
I see.
But it still works out to be a good deal
Right.
in either case.
I see. So I guess that's kind of a gamble between our marginal tax rate's going to be higher when you take it out or when you put it in.
That's right. But you really want to do both, because they're so much better than just sticking
Exactly.
it in, into a regular stock without the benefits of the IRA or the 401k.
I see.
Tax deferral.
So what if someone, I don't know, someone may think it's like, oh, well, we have this great thing called Social Security, won't that take care of me? So, I want to
watch the debates tonight,
exactly, see what happens.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming this counts under unfunded liabilities as being an issue.
Yeah. I think that the Social Security system, as best I understand it, there's no big pot of money out there. What's happening is we're moving money from the guys that are currently working to the guys that aren't working, and there's really no accumulated bucket of money waiting for you when you see that money coming out of your check every 2 weeks or so. It's really just going to the guy that's already
it's like going back to you in the future.
No. So I think everyone knows the Social Security system is in trouble.
Right.
At a minimum, they're going to have to move your retirement age back from whenever, years back, to make the system solvent, if they're smart enough to do that, if they can do that. So I wouldn't want to rely on the politicians to
avoid it.
Yeah.
Excellent. And another thing that gets this into is you mentioned you have to plan to live to 100 now, and with medical technology that may even be conservative, right?
Yeah.
And so we used to think, when Social Security was enacted, people didn't live but until 70. Now people do live that long, so
that's right.
Much longer. So planning ahead is all that more important now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Excellent. So the next thing we've got is pay off student loans early.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that's similar to the credit card debt question we were thinking about.
Yeah. Student loans, you're going to get a better rate on student loans.
Right.
And I put that after your retirement account bucket comes before that, because of paying it off early. You obviously have to make scheduled payments. But the faster you get out of debt, totally, the better off you are. And so that if I'd already maxed out on my retirement funds and I was lucky enough to have additional money available for savings, then I would pay off the student loans.
I see. So getting on that same track. So how important is a college degree for your higher education nowadays? Because I have friends. I went to UNC Chapel Hill, and I have friends that they went to community college and they became diesel mechanics and they became plumbers, and they're doing very well for themselves. In fact, they're making more than I am.
Yeah.
And I went to a 4-year school, and they have essentially no debt because community college is essentially free now. Even though we talk about making it free, it's essentially free.
Yeah.
And my education cost $100,000, and theirs cost maybe 1 or 2% of that.
Right.
So what do you think about that? It almost seems like the university system right now is the Catholic Church in the 1650s, right? You can't really question that at all, but there are these other paths.
Yeah, well, there certainly are other paths, and if there's studies of millionaires, and the millionaire next door, and he very well could be the the tradesman
Right.
who is good about building a business and getting clients and having a profitable business and being good about budgeting his money and saving his money. I wish that the universities, when people are picking out their major, would educate people on what the current earnings are for
Right.
that. In other words, if I look at what I want to study in college and look at what is the earnings power of what I will get with
Right.
that degree if I get a job and earn the median salary and compare that to what it costs me.
Right.
There's not enough of that analysis going on.
Right.
Now for me, I felt like my education was great. I
Right.
I got an accounting degree, immediately had a job, got a school, an MBA degree, went to went to a securities firm, worked for a securities
Right.
firm. So it paid off for me.
I see.
But I agree, there are a lot of majors that you do it because it's a love, not because it's a commercial success from,
Right.
making that big investment, your $100,000 investment.
It almost seems like college is somewhat of an insurance policy nowadays.
Yeah.
More than anything else to avoid, getting left behind. That makes sense. Like, and it's really interesting thing because now that we want everyone to go to college, it seems like we have a lot of schools that, I'm not going to name any, but it's, you go there to have a good time. It's like your mom really wants you to go to college. It's like, well, okay, I'll go, I'll have, a great time.
Yeah.
And it's not really to reach some goal, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's clear that you need to go to school if you want to go to medical school, you want to be a CPA,
Right. Mm-hmm.
you want to be a dentist, you need to go through the training, right? But other than that, I think you made a good point. It's good to think about what you're going for, I guess.
Yeah, what it's gonna cost you to get there.
Right.
Is this the smartest way for me to get to what my goal is to be? And that's hard for a young person
That's
because
right.
they don't necessarily know at the front end. That's why I guess the popularity of gap years have come on. They give people a little more time to figure out what they want to do in life.
Right, excellent. Cool. So the next part, I think this is great because I've never heard anybody say this before. And so you're kind of going against the dogma of, your best investment is a home, is
Yeah.
real estate, right? Like,
Right.
it's something, it's real, right? It's going to make you all this money. So what do you think about, owning a home and
That idea that your home is your best investment, that's put out by my real estate friends.
Right.
and Home Depot and
Right.
They want you to believe that. It's really not an investment. It is a lifestyle choice and one that might help build strong family relationships, to have the right kind of housing, but it is certainly not the best investment. If you're lucky enough to live in a community where there are more people moving in than moving out,
Right.
likely home prices are going to go up. All real estate's going to go up. So, but still, the carrying costs of owning real estate are so high that you really can get fooled. Well, I bought it at this price and I sold it at that price. I made money.
Right.
But wait, let's look back at that. What were your taxes each year?
Right.
Kind of high because I'm in the city. What's your insurance? What is your carrying cost? How much did you pay in mortgage interest how much furniture did you have to buy? How many times did you remodel or repaint?
Right.
When did the carpet wear out?
Who's
Who's mowing the lawn?
Right.
Who's putting the grass seed down?
That's a great point.
If you add it all up, you would find out, I think, that you'd be lucky to make a small profit on your home.
I see.
But again, it's a lifestyle choice. But I put it way down the list. If you're going for financial independence, then actually owning a home is way down the list.
Yeah, most people think.
Yeah, I think so.
Interesting because a lot of millennials and a lot of my friends, like owning a home is not something that we're just like gunning for. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not as big of a priority as it was, in the 50s and the 70s.
Right. Well, that's because we had 50 or 60 years of straight up home prices, and the idea that you can make money on a home was very popular until 2008 came along and showed everybody, oh, you can lose money on homes, and you can lose a lot of money. The other thing is you take on a big slug of mortgage, and if you're unfortunate enough to be in a city like Detroit, good luck.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
good luck with the, getting out of it. So now you're underwater. The mortgage is worth, the mortgage is higher than the cost of the home.
Right.
And what you can sell the home for. So you can get sideways. Now, here in Raleigh, great.
Right.
And the Triangle, you're lucky. But, if you were in Eastern North Carolina, where some of the not many young people are sticking around, then I think housing would be questionable as an investment.
I see. And you put here, so the down payment, you suggested it should be at least 20%.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna be serious about owning a house, why don't you wait until you've got that kind of capital?
Right.
Again, it's not a great investment, so why use all your borrowing capacity to buy the biggest house you can buy? It just means you gotta buy more furniture, and you gotta heat and cool it, and
That's right.
it goes on and on. So it's counterproductive to getting to financial independence.
Right. Excellent. So next we've got the 100-year plan.
Yeah.
And we've got this excellent diagram you put together. And
I had the art department put that together this weekend.
Cool. I'm gonna photocopy this. We'll put the documents online for you to see. So we have 1 year savings today, Niles, with 2 to 3 years of freedom. We already talked a little bit about this, but I want to go a little bit deeper. So, I had a professor I took a class at Duke, and he was funded by the Koch Foundation, very smart guy, and we talked about we studied philosophy, politics, and economics, the intersection of the three. And he, we were talking about something similar to this, and he takes his preference at his right now, if that makes sense. So his time right now is more valuable to him than in the future, because he says he's young, and his utility is better now because he can run around. I actually thought this is a really bad idea, because with modern medical technology, it's only getting better and better to be older. If that makes sense.
Right.
So I think this is actually more true than it was 20 or 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm just on the other end of the spectrum. I'm more concerned about maintaining and enjoying life in a balanced manner.
Right.
And I think I'm willing to give up a little bit of today for a bigger payoff.
Well,
if I'm getting
sense.
2 to 1 or 3 to 1,
that's a
I'm
pretty
gonna
good
take,
deal.
I'm gonna take
That's
that
a really
deal.
good deal.
If it gets down to 1 to 1, then maybe I'm with the professor on that one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a great lesson, because we have this generation gap, right, between you and I. So I look at you and you're doing great things. And how old are you now?
62.
You're 62. You're still working, and you don't seem like you're going to be stopping anytime soon.
Hope to. Now I'll be doing something for sure.
Right. But just and you're going to keep growing and things of that nature, which is inspiring. So it makes this more poignant, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So next we have so we know we want to invest in ourselves.
Yeah.
So what else do we want to invest in?
Well, let's go down to the retirement savings. Okay, now you set this money aside. Where do you put that money?
Right.
And what has always been the best investment is owning a piece of a growing business.
Okay.
Now that could be a private business, or that could be a public business. For retirement accounts, it's generally a publicly traded security.
I see.
So you're owning a piece of that business, whether it's Apple Computer, Facebook, or Amazon. You own a piece of that business.
Right.
And a growing business has always been the best path to creating wealth. I put together a couple of charts there for you, just show you. People have a great fear of the stock market at times. Sometimes they don't fear it enough. But if you look out over the S&P 500 and you chop it up into 10-year periods, and if you take 79 10-year periods that we've had, there's only been 4 10-year periods, or 4 or 5, where you've lost money. A couple of those were in the Great Depression, and the others, if you waited 1 more year, the 11th year, you actually made money during that period of time. So being involved in the stock market, it's just a matter of having a longer term horizon. Now the median return, like we talked about, is 9%. The simple average return would be 11%. But it's going to, if you think about somewhere between 7 and 9 if we're in really good growth periods, everything's productivity's up. 7 if we're not. I think that's probably reasonable expectation. But that gets you to a point in time, by the time you have to start withdrawing your retirement savings, if you've been a great saver there and have saved and maxed out, you're gonna have enough money to do what you would like to do in life, I think.
I see. Excellent. So, when people say, okay, they hear, invest in the S&P 500,
Right.
I assume, I assume you don't mean I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna pick, these 5 companies.
That's what we're talking about, yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
So is it
Well,
mutual funds or is it?
Let's talk about that, because
Interesting.
what you wanna do, the 401k, the way that works is the company picks out your alternatives in
Okay.
conjunction with the plan
I see.
sponsor or whoever, or the investment advisor. So you have a limited number of options. They've been
I see.
Now, they could be actively traded funds, they could be passive funds like ETFs or index funds. I think for most people, what you wanna go for is the lowest cost funds, which would be the passive funds
I see.
for your 401k. And if you are lucky enough that your plan sponsor has both domestic and international ETFs or index funds, that's good, because studies show about 25 to 30% in international. The balance in domestic funds is a good mix and gives you kind of best of both worlds. You
I
get
see.
all the diversification
Right.
benefits, or most of them, 85% of them, by
Gotcha.
having 25 to 30% in international. Now, why passive funds? Because that 0.5% difference between fees that you pay for active versus passive, and it might be greater than that, but that's a reasonable kind of benchmark. That could be as much as $500,000 by the time you retire.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a
Right.
big
It's
number
big.
because of compounding on compounding.
Right.
So really for your 401k, where you're really not picking individual stocks.
Right.
You want to have the low cost funds, okay? Now, when you get to your IRA, that's a little different. Your IRA typically is self-directed, so you
Right.
are then able to make decisions about what investments you want. And listen, if you can be lucky enough to get to higher than median returns, if you do better than 7 to 9%, you'd be surprised at how much more you're gonna have at the end of the long investment period. The problem with that is that most people, on average, aren't gonna do any better than the pros. In fact, they're probably gonna do worse than the
Right.
pros. You're up against really stiff competition. But in your IRA, what you could do is say, hey, look, I'm a young person, I can take more risk. I'm gonna go to maybe sector funds, which are ETFs and I'm gonna pick out the high growth sectors of the economy.
Right.
So you might say, hey, look, I believe in technology long term, it's gonna ever be a high growth area for me, for the economy, or healthcare.
Right.
And say, I'm gonna put my money in those 2 sectors and maybe yet another that you believe in.
Gotcha.
And those are gonna give you higher returns than the overall market, because the overall market includes things like utilities and other slower growing companies, maybe some consumer staple companies.
Right.
So you could take some more risk there.
I see.
And the good news is, because you're putting in $5,500 a year, you're averaging over time, so that the
Right.
market goes down. What you really would love to have to do is the market go down for 39 years, and the year that you
Right.
maybe this skyrockets the last
Exactly.
year, or stays the same and then skyrockets the last
Right.
year. That would be the best for you, because you get really good prices
Right.
as you're investing. That's not gonna happen, obviously. So,
Right.
but you are gonna average in. But other areas that you might think about, if you can find good low-cost funds, would be emerging markets. They're gonna grow faster than developed markets.
Interesting.
And small cap stocks, small capitalization
I
stocks.
see.
Smaller stocks historically have always grown faster than large stocks.
Interesting.
So sometimes you'll be taking more volatility, but again, you're averaging in, so that's not gonna hurt you. So
Gotcha.
those are some areas you could do. Now, you're in technology, right?
Right.
Okay. You may know a lot about technology and you may say, you know what, I think I can figure out, and I'll know good competitors, people in my industry who are doing really good things, and I'm gonna invest in those companies that I see while I'm working, and you might do very, very well doing that. And so there's always room for that. And that would
I
be
see.
the only way And I would say that a person who's not involved in the business full time could compete
Right.
effectively, because you're on the firing lines, and as
Right.
long as you're not using insider
Exactly.
information, it could work well for you. That would be the area that I would have people kind of think about. And maybe not when you're 22, but maybe
Right.
later on in your career, as you're starting to see how strategies and patterns develop, you could execute that.
Interesting. So, I guess what seems to be really important here is knowing what you don't know.
Right, right.
And more than anything else, right? So, when you buy, passive funds that, let's say buy a little bit of every single company, in publicly traded company in the United States, that what you're doing there is you're essentially betting that the United States will grow.
Correct.
Which seems, that's the best bet in the world right now,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's no other, where else would you go? So if you don't know anything else, but if you do, you have a lot of experience in the industry, you've worked in pharmaceuticals for 35 years,
Yes.
and maybe you can do something.
You know that you can pick the winners out and understand where the winners are. Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So next we've got these average returns, and right here I love this chart. So we've got equities on the S&P 500, and I'll put this up on the screen in the video. But we've got it compared to the hedge fund returns, bonds, and commodities.
Right.
So would you hold any bonds, government bonds, or would you avoid that?
Not in my, no. Bonds are for folks that are really aged up.
Right.
And like myself, maybe, but I don't even hold any bonds to
Right.
speak of. It's really for those that require the highest amount of income to live every day. It's really those who don't like the volatility of the stock market. And in today's interest rates, I just can't advise anybody to be holding much in the way of bonds.
Right.
Unless they need. The only thing I can think of is if you need to, you're going to spend the money in the next year or two, and to have a really short-term bond, it makes sense. I think, Will, the one area that we haven't talked about that really how I've seen people get to financial independence. We talk about the retirement accounts and being smart about your money.
Right.
But there's also, when you're young and you're doing this, there's the ability to take a position with a young entrepreneurial company and perhaps get yourself in a position to be an equity owner or part owner of that business. That is a very good avenue to grow to. Now, what you're probably doing if you stay with the young entrepreneurial companies is you're probably not getting as much in the way of benefits or salary or retirement kind of perks, or maybe even holidays.
Right.
You're working longer hours for less pay.
Right.
There's no limit to the number of hours you can work.
That's right.
You are sacrificing on the hope that you're with something that's creating something that's going to be of great value and can benefit me personally.
Right.
So when you think about that, an entrepreneurial company has to be led by somebody, a great leader.
Right.
Because all strategies eventually are copied or no longer applicable. The strategies become weaknesses and so on and so forth. But if you have a dynamic leader who is driven to create and build a business, and you can be a part of that team, or if that's your personality, you've got a good shot of creating really good wealth through the ownership of that. We're back to owning part of a growing company. And so that goes back to making yourself really valuable to that company, getting yourself in a position where they reward you with some equity ownership or the ability to invest or give you options or some kind of equity ownership, such that over your career with that company, it develops into something very, very valuable, and that's where a lot of wealth has been created.
Right.
Especially if that company's private and then one day goes public.
I see. Right.
Yeah. Or is private and one day merges with a larger company that happens to be public, and then you get a public stock, and you can hold on to that stock and again defer taxes like we talked about earlier.
Excellent. Cool. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about why it's such a good idea to invest in equities. So it's capital, right? So can you explain let's start from the very beginning what capital is and why it's more beneficial than wages.
Well, capital, you and I were talking about this study that said that capital grows faster than wages, and the old adage that the rich get richer.
Right.
Well, the rich have capital, and it's growing faster than your wages, so they are getting ahead.
Right.
And they continue to get ahead. So I think because we live in America and it's a capitalistic society, capital is money that you can invest in a business that you don't need to spend anytime soon. And so you can allow that business to use that capital to hire people, invest in technology, invest in equipment, to create a service that creates a profit because they can create clients along the way.
Interesting. Well, this is a great insight.
Yeah. So, the key for everybody is to get in the business of being a capitalist, either through your retirement account, through your company that you're in, to be a part of that ownership. There's an old saying, you're making too much money to get rich. What? Think about that. That guy's making too much money to get rich.
Right.
Because his high salary prevents him from he can't feel, he's got his expense rates up so high, he's spending so much money, he can't afford to not make that kind of money and go take an entrepreneurial opportunity. That's why the benefit of being young, starting out and taking an entrepreneurial opportunities is a great thing.
Right. That's so great. And you highlighted something that I think a lot of people don't get. It's like a capitalist is someone who owns capital.
Right.
Right. It's not like some competition thing or anything like that. That's literally what that means. Someone that owns capital.
Yeah, good way to put it.
And it seems like, we live in a time when almost anyone can own capital.
Right.
Right. I mean, just recently they've released, brokerages with zero fees to get into and buy equities on the S&P 500.
Yeah.
Which, so it's like the barriers of entry have basically
very small. Right. The ability, to, like you said, the commission cost, the trading cost, to get in, get started, very, very low. Yeah.
Right, like Vanguard,
Vanguard's perfect place to get low cost funds.
Yeah. Excellent. So just to get into the weeds a little bit, because we've been up here in the sky. So you mentioned Vanguard. Do you have any other suggestions of areas to look?
Well, BlackRock, a lot of ETFs do the same thing that the index funds do. So that there'll be Invesco advertises some ETFs and some of the NASDAQ subsectors.
I see.
Those would all be a good place to look for low cost funds.
Great. Excellent. Well, do you have anything else?
Good luck. It's a great journey.
Definitely. This has been enlightening, and I think this will really help a lot of people in my generation because we don't get this in high school, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. Like they have family life and they have physical education. And you got you learn math, you learn how to read, but you don't learn how to take care of your money. At all.
Yeah.
Just completely skipped over. So this will be, and even in college, I mean, it's not talked about. So this has really been helpful, and I think this will help a lot of people.
Good. Well, I appreciate the time, Will, and giving me the chance to share some ideas with you.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Yeah.